Today I can confirm that at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September, Australia will recognise the state of Palestine. Australia will recognise the right of the Palestinian people to a state of their own, predicated on the commitments Australia has received from the Palestinian Authority. We will work with the international community to make this right a reality.
This is my video update on this Monday afternoon, August the 11th, coming to you from Larnica, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news, and let's start things off with the Vance interview on Fox News with Maria Bartiromo, where the U.S. Vice President said some very interesting things. Look at how far out I am. Right now, I'm on my knees here in Larnica. Man, shallow water. So, yeah, Vance said some very interesting things to Maria Bartiromo. He was asked, of course, about Project Ukraine, the upcoming meeting in Alaska between Trump and Putin, which will be happening this Friday, August the 15th. Trump said that the United States is done funding Ukraine. They are done funding Ukraine if the Europeans, according to Vance, want to step up and buy American weapons for Zelensky, for Kiev, then they can do so, according to Vance. Go ahead. If you want to keep this conflict going by purchasing American weapons, feel free to do so. But he said that the American taxpayer is done sending money to Project Ukraine. Where the EU is going to get the money, because the EU is in recession, they're broke. That's a good question to ask. Where is the EU going to get their money? They're going to borrow, they're going to print, they're going to take away from their citizens, tax their citizens. Who knows how they're going to get the money? But where there's a will, there's a way, I guess. And the weapons. The weapons. Does the U.S. have weapons to give to the EU to sell? Not to give, to sell to the EU. Well, the European Union, they've had 3.5 years to actually purchase weapons from the United States, and they really haven't been purchasing weapons to the United States to then give to Project Ukraine, because the United States was giving those weapons to Project Ukraine. But the EU has never stepped up to actually purchase weapons from the United States and then send those weapons to Project Ukraine. They would have to do it on an individual, like an EU member state level. NATO can't do it for them. The EU really can't do it for them. Ursula created all kinds of funds, artillery shell funds and stuff like that. All of that stuff flopped. They were all disastrous. Jungle Joseph Borrell's, what was it, like 1 million or 2 million shell fund, which he was hoping EU member states would step up and take advantage of this fund, where you would be able to send your artillery shells to Project Ukraine, and then you would then be compensated from this EU slush fund. And anyway, all that stuff completely failed. It all completely failed. It's just not there. The weapons are just not there, right? The weapons that Ukraine needs, the artillery shells, the air defense systems, they're not there at the level that Russia has them available. Right, Russia's outproducing all of the collective West, and the United States. Well, we saw what happened when Trump tried to deal with the Patriot air defense problem. Right, the United States doesn't have the Patriot systems. It's a 7-year waiting list to get Patriot air defense systems, new ones. And what did the Trump White House try to do? It tried to get its allies and vassals to give up their Patriot systems. But no one was biting. No one was willing to wait 7 years, giving up their Patriot systems and then wait 7 years for a new Patriot system, except for Germany, of course, go figure. BlackRock Merch said, okay, I'll give up a couple of Patriot systems. I'll deliver them to Ukraine in about 7 to 8 months. I don't know what's going on with those Patriot systems, if they've been delivered or not. I hear different reports saying that some parts have been delivered, others have not. It's going to take 7 to 8 months. But Merz said, okay, I'll give a couple of Patriot systems. And what was Germany given in return? They were put top of the list above Switzerland. Switzerland was on the top of the list to receive a Patriot air defense system in 7 years, and Germany basically leapfrogged Switzerland to be top of the list for a new Patriot system in 7 years. But look, the money's not really there. But Ursula can find the money. She can go into debt. She can print. She can take from the citizens. But the weapons, the physical weapons, are also not there. At least not in the quantities that Ukraine needs to match Russia's production. So, Vance, in a way, he knows this. Vance must know this. In a way, Vance is basically saying, look, once we go from Project Ukraine, once we're out, Europe can't handle Project Ukraine. If they want to go ahead and try, go ahead. But if we stop funding this thing, there is no Project Ukraine. And even if we stay in, even if we decide to stay in Project Ukraine, we're still not going to defeat Russia. That's basically what Vance is saying. At least that's the vibe that I got off of Vance's statement. But he talked about territory swaps as well. He said that if there is a deal that is worked out between Trump and Putin, there will be some swapping of territory. And he said that not everyone is going to be happy. He said that the U.S. is backing a Ukraine settlement based on the current front line. So basically, the territory swap, which is the big part of the discussion when it comes to Friday, August the 15th, the meeting between Trump and Putin. It's all about the territory and what's going to happen with the 4 new Russian oblasts, according to the Russian Constitution. Are they willing to part with some of the territory in the oblasts? Are they willing to part with the buffer zone that they've created in Sumy and in the north? Is Putin willing to do that? Because Ukraine and the collective West, to be quite honest, they talk about a territory swap, but I mean, look, collective West and Ukraine, they don't have any territory to swap. That's just the reality of the situation. So everything is dependent on Russia and Putin. Will Russia, will Putin, for whatever reason, be willing to do some sort of a swap for something? It won't be territory. It will not be territory. Swap for sanctions relief, swap for I don't know. But I don't see it. I just don't see it happening. My thinking on this is that Putin and his administration will stick to Istanbul plus June 2024 root causes. They're going to stick to that. I don't see how Putin can walk back from that, because it's in the Russian Constitution. Kherson, Zaporozhye, Donetsk, Lugansk, it's in the Russian Constitution. And Putin knows that if he walked back on June 2024, root causes Istanbul plus, then he would be in trouble, man. He'd have a hard time as president of Russia. How do you explain that to the Russian people? How do you explain that to the Russian military, to the Russian soldiers? I just don't see it happening. There's no indication from the Kremlin that they're going to do any territory swap. And Ukraine and the collective West, they don't have the territory to swap. So if there was, theoretically, if there was some sort of a swap that was going to take place, it would have to be territory for something that the Trump White House gives to Ukraine. I just can't see it. I cannot see it. But everything is possible, I guess. Everything is possible. And everyone is talking about territory. But territory is just one part of the negotiations when you think about it. You have no NATO. That's a big part. That's the reason that we have this war. Ukraine does not get into NATO. You have to think about Ukraine and the EU. Do you allow Ukraine to move towards the EU? The EU is now NATO, so why would you prohibit Ukraine from entering NATO but allow them to enter the EU? If you get into the EU, you pretty much have one foot in the door of NATO. There's no more weapons to Ukraine. Demilitarization. That's part of the goals of the special military operation, right? So if you're going to fulfill the goals of the SMO, one of the major goals was demilitarization. So you can't allow weapons from any country, whether it's weapons from Poland or Romania or Greece, from the United States, wherever the weapons are coming from, or whether they're bought or given, wherever they're flowing from. You can't allow weapons to go to Ukraine because that goes against your SMO goal of demilitarization. And another big point that they're going to have to discuss are elections in Ukraine. You have to discuss what you're going to do with the intel services of Ukraine, the SBU, the Bogdanovs, the CIA presence in Ukraine, the NGOs in Ukraine, the think tanks, the anti-corruption agencies like NABU, all of these Western institutions that exert so much influence in Kiev. If you're Russia, you have to discuss these things with Trump, and I imagine that Putin would tell Trump, you have to dismantle all of these things, right? It's not just about territory, though territory and the conflict on the front lines is without a doubt the most important part of this conflict. Everything is dictated by what's happening on the ground, on the front lines, but there's all kinds of issues that they need to discuss, and there's all kinds of ways that you can set things up so that if the deal is indeed Istanbul Plus, well, if you're Russia, you could make it so that the conditions going forward means that that you will accomplish your goals of the SMO, that you will accomplish the no NATO, the denazification, demilitarization. If you get your terms accepted with regards to elections, with regards to the weapons flow into Ukraine, dissolving all of the CIA presence or the MI6 presence, the SBU, all of these organizations, get rid of them if you're Russia. If you achieve all these things, then you've accomplished a lot. And if you couple that in with sanctions relief, if you package that in with sanctions relief, and say you're 300 billion in frozen assets, which is probably more important. The sanctions relief is important. There's some people that say the sanctions relief is not that important. I was in Moscow, though Russia is doing fine. You still don't want all these sanctions on your country. Even if you decide to be out of the Western system, you don't want all these sanctions against your country, right? And you want to open up the commercial airlines. You want to resolve all these issues. Yeah, but the frozen assets, that might be a talking point as well. So there's a lot to discuss, to be quite honest. It's going to be a difficult and long process. It's not going to be easy. Not going to be easy at all. But Vance, he said that Trump, one of the concessions that he did get from Putin was for Putin to agree to eventually meet with Zelensky. He said, not now. He said, this is going to be a bilateral meeting. Zelensky's not invited. But Vance said that Trump convinced Putin to eventually sit down and meet with Zelensky, which is going to have to happen if this progresses, if we progress. And we are close to a deal, which I think is going to be very difficult, very, very difficult. But let's just say this thing progresses and we do get close to some sort of a deal. Eventually, yeah, Russia's going to have to sit down with Zelensky or whoever it's going to be, because that person's going to have to sign whatever documents are going to need to be signed. Even though what the Russians have accomplished is that they have gotten the bilateral meeting with the United States, right? That's a big accomplishment, which is exactly what the Russians have been trying to do for a while now. Because at the end of the day, this is without a doubt a war between the United States and Russia, right? It's a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Alexander calls it a coalition war, and he's right about that. Maybe proxy war is not the right term. He's actually used that term before in past videos. But yeah, it's a coalition war led by the United States, funded, operated, commanded, led by the United States. Ukraine is the proxy. Ukraine is the place where this coalition war is happening. But if you're going to resolve this, it has to be the United States and Russia. There's no other way to resolve this. Those are the two parties at war. They have to have a bilateral meeting. They probably have to have many bilateral meetings because they're the two sides that are in conflict. But for appearances, right? For appearances, for many reasons, yeah, it's going to have to eventually be Zelensky that's going to have to sign something, or whoever is going to be in charge of Ukraine. A lot of things could change from today to until the point where we may actually get some sort of an agreement, which once again I think is going to be very difficult to get to that point, if not impossible. But it could happen. It could happen. Let's hope it happens. Let's hope we get to a point where Istanbul Plus is accepted, and that we can end this conflict between the United States and Russia, even though the Trump administration, for their own reasons, they want to present this as if they are the mediators. And Vance did a good job as he was speaking to Maria Bartiromo of presenting the conflict as a Russia-Ukraine war, with the United States mediating and the United States wanting to end this conflict, wanting the killing to stop, because they are the mediator, right? The mediator in this conflict. And Russia plays along with it. Russia does play along with this fiction that the United States is the mediator. Then if you bring an end to the conflict, you get the Nobel Peace Prize, right? If you're the mediator. You don't get the Nobel Peace Prize if you're on the other side of the table, a party to the conflict, right? You get the Nobel Peace Prize if you're mediating. But yeah, Russia plays along with it, which I guess is, for Russia, the way they see it, is whatever. That's fine if you want to market this as you're the mediator in this conflict. Whatever, but everyone knows that this is a bilateral negotiation taking place by the two sides in conflict, which is Russia and the United States. So that's Vance. That's what he said in his interview with Maria Bartiromo. At least that's what he said in relation to Project Ukraine. Lindsey Graham was also on mainstream media talking about Project Ukraine. I believe he was on Meet the Press, NBC. And he also said that there's going to be a solution to the conflict in Ukraine, or we're close to a solution to the conflict in Ukraine. He also talked about a land swap, right? Everyone's talking about the land swap. There's going to be a swapping of territory. Okay, okay, whatever. Swap territory, whatever you say, Lindsey. So there's going to be a land swap, he said, and he said he's very confident that Trump can get a deal. So he was kissing up to Trump in a big way during this interview, though he did not look very, very happy. I have to say that. He looked a bit deflated, but he made sure that he kissed up to Trump as he was speaking to NBC News. He also said that the resolution to the conflict will be something along the lines of Korea or Germany. That's the way he packaged it. Keep dreaming, man. Is my stuff all right? Can you guys see my bag? Oh, let's go check up on my bag. Make sure nothing was stolen. I don't see it. Oh, man. I think I see it. I see it over there. Yeah, so he's talking about a Korea-Germany freeze is basically what Lindsey Graham is hinting at. That's what he's hoping for. That's what he's hoping is going to happen. He's still holding out hope that that Putin will cave and he'll agree to a Minsk 3. Not going to happen, Lindsey. Not going to happen. But anyway, that's what he told Meet the Press. The neocons, they're running this whole thing, man. They're running this whole thing, and they've got the Europeans now out in front to try and sabotage the negotiations, right? So Lindsey Graham is talking up Trump, right? He's talking up Trump. But behind the scenes, the neocons, they've got the Europeans there to try and scuttle any type of deal between Trump and Putin. And that's what the Europeans are doing. They're stepping up and they're taking their orders from the globalists and the neocons. And they're saying, okay, you're ordering us to try and sabotage this deal to our own detriment as Europe. As Europe, you should be wanting a rapprochement between the United States and Russia. You should be wanting a normalization of relations between the US and Russia, in which case you would then be able to normalize your relations with Russia. You resolve Project Ukraine. Ukraine remains neutral, not in NATO, not in the EU, and maybe you can start to get your economies back on track somehow, some way. But nope, not this crop of EU leaders. They're taking their orders from the neocons and the globalists, and they're trying their very best to sabotage the negotiations before they even happen. Preemptive negotiation sabotage from the European Union and the UK. Merz was panicking, man. BlackRock Merz. Panicking big time. He said that he either talked to Trump on Sunday or he wanted to talk to Trump on Sunday, and he's going to continue to try to talk to Trump. And basically, Merz's message for Trump is, don't do it. Don't do it, President Trump. Do not fall prey to Putin's charm, his manipulation, his manipulative tactics. Do not succumb to Putin's manipulative tactics, U.S. President Trump. That was Merz's message to Trump. I'm not sure if he has actually spoken to Trump or if he's trying to get on the phone with Trump. According to Bloomberg, the European leaders are absolutely trying to talk to Trump before he meets with Putin. It's very important for them to speak to Trump before the meeting takes place, right? They want to manipulate the Trump White House. They want to poison the negotiation process. They want to say some bad stuff about Putin to Trump. Right? Like little kids, man. They're awful. They're awful. Little gossipy kids, man. Yeah, they want to tell Trump all the bad things about Putin and Russia, and don't ditch us, don't ditch Project Ukraine, don't leave us. If you agree to Putin, then you're no better than Chamberlain, right? I haven't heard that one before. That's what they're going to tell him. You're no better than Chamberlain, and Putin's going to march all the way to Paris or London, or he may even take Alaska. He may even take Alaska right when you're in Alaska. He may actually capture Alaska while you're still negotiating with him. Huh? Anyway, that's Merz. That's the Europeans. There's no need to worry, everybody. If you're in Europe and you're afraid of what Putin might do on Friday using his KGB powers to get the better of U.S. President Trump, if you're worried, there's no need to worry. Do you see me worrying? Do you see me panicking? No, not at all. I'm not panicking. I'm not worried. You know why I'm not worried? I'm not worried because Stunning and Brave is stepping up. Kallas, that's right. Kallas is in a meeting right now. As I am recording this video, Kallas called an emergency EU foreign ministers meeting in order to deal with this negotiation that is going to take place on Friday. That's right. According to Reuters, Kallas says any deal between the US and Russia must include Ukraine and the EU. She's going to make sure, look, she is going to absolutely make sure that Trump doesn't agree to anything without the approval of herself and Ursula and Macron and Merz. And Trump will not. I know a bit about Trump. I've been following his career, his political career, for a while now. since his first term. And I'll tell you this, man. I will tell you this about Trump. He never makes a move, ever. He never, ever, ever makes a move without getting the approval of Kallas first. So, yeah, she holds a lot of influence, a lot of sway over U.S. foreign policy decisions. Maybe even more influence than Lindsey Graham. Maybe, just maybe. You know, Lindsey Graham actually admitted, as he was speaking to NBC, that he's been speaking with the Europeans, with Zelensky, with the Europeans, about the meeting in Alaska. Who is Lindsey Graham to be doing all of this, man? I thought you're the senator from South Carolina. Why are you coordinating U.S. foreign policy and talking about a Russia-U.S. summit with leaders in Europe? With any leaders? Why are you discussing these things as the senator from South Carolina? It's not even taking place in South Carolina. I can see the senator from Alaska perhaps calling the Europeans. I could see that, you know, it's happening in my state. I wanted to call up Kaya to make sure she's okay, make sure she's not depressed. But Lindsey Graham, what are you doing, bro? Anyway, we'll finish off this segment with the NATO CEO, Mark Rutte, who was on, I believe, ABC. They're going on all the networks, right? You got Fox covered, you got NBC covered, you got CBS or ABC. I believe Whitaker was on ABC or CBS or Fox. And Whitaker was talking about the ambassador to NATO, the U.S. ambassador to NATO. He was talking about how, what was he saying? How it's still not too late. Zelensky still might show up in Alaska. That's what he was saying. Don't be surprised if Zelensky shows up in Alaska. It still might happen. Whitaker said, talk about coping, man. Jeez, Whitaker. Yep, Zelensky, he's going to show up in Alaska, man. Dressed up in a green polar bear outfit. I'm here. Hey, Podolyak, I thought polar bears were white. Why green? Mr. President, everything you own is green. Oh, yes, this is true. Yeah, that was Whitaker. So anyway, what was I saying? Rutte, the CEO of NATO. I feel for Rutte, guys. I really feel for Rutte. He's in a tough spot. I have to admit, he is in a tough position, Mark Rutte, because on the one hand, he has to kiss up to Trump. He has to kiss up to Daddy, right? Because the United States is his number one customer. On the other side, he has to keep the conflict going, right? So he's in a tough position, Rutte. So he was talking about how Trump is a genius. He should be commended, Rutte said. He should be commended for getting this meeting with Russia. So he's kissing up to Trump, and then he says that Russia will remain the enemy of NATO, Putin will remain the enemy of NATO, and that this meeting is going to be a test for Putin to see if he's really serious about peace. But Rutte also said he does not expect any kind of signature to take place on Friday, which is true. I don't think anyone expects a signature to go down on Friday. But Rutte also said that you have to include Europe and Ukraine in the negotiation process. So Rutte's walking the tightrope, right? I have to kiss up to Daddy because I get all my money from Daddy, but I also have to make sure that the conflict is going on, because without Russia as the enemy, well, then there's no real need for NATO, is there? And that means there's no real need for a CEO of NATO. So that's Rutte's game. Anyway, Zelensky's game is that he's trying to show up in Alaska, and now he is using the excuse of having to protect the United States. No joke, man. No joke. Ukraine will not let Russia deceive America, Zelensky says ahead of upcoming Trump-Putin summit. That's right. He will not let Putin deceive you, America. Zelensky will not let it happen. Good thing that the United States has Zelensky on their side, protecting the U.S. Volodymyr Zelensky. That's right. Yeah, he said he's going to make sure, in a statement that he gave Yesterday, he's going to make sure that that he protects the United States from Putin's manipulation. Oh, man. Klitschko's turning on Zelensky, though. The mayor of Kiev, the boxer, the heavyweight, the one-time heavyweight champ of the world, Klitschko. He is turning on the Green Goblin. He gave an interview, and he pretty much said that Ukraine is losing this conflict, that they've lost this conflict. He said that the people in Kiev, they want this war to end. He said that that there is no Ukraine presence in Kursk. He said that Ukraine left Bakhmut. The situation on the front line, he said, is difficult. And people want this conflict to end. He actually said soldiers have left the territory in Bakhmut. We no longer talk about Kursk, he said, admitting that Kursk was a failure. So what territory swap are they going on and on about? This is nonsense, man. Territory swap, it's smoke and mirrors, distraction. That's what the territory swap is all about. There's no territory swap. None whatsoever. There's another collective West narrative that they've put together, a swapping of territories, right? You know, in a way, I think it's about just fooling people into believing that the West actually has leverage on Russia. So they create this territory swap narrative, right? Because people that aren't following the war in the detail that we follow, the conflict in Ukraine, Project Ukraine, a lot of people are going to just assume that Ukraine has something, that Russia has something. Trump's going to come in there. He's going to negotiate a swap, and there you have it, right? It's an easy concept for people to understand if you haven't been following what's been going on. Gets you a Nobel Peace Prize. Anyway, the UK Times, Sunday Times, they admitted that the coalition of the willing narrative is BS, man. It's all a farce. The Sunday Times put out the situation, the hypothetical situation. What if there is a ceasefire and there is a deal between Trump and Putin, right? This is what the Sunday Times is saying. And then Trump approaches Macron and Stammer, according to the Sunday Times, and they talk about peacekeepers in Ukraine. And the Trump White House says, okay, I got the ceasefire. Now you guys can send your peacekeepers in Ukraine. The Sunday Times is saying that the UK and France would have to tell Trump, no, we can't do that. We don't have the troops. No one wants to send troops into Ukraine. And so, you know, we can't really move forward on that coalition of the willing troops in Ukraine nonsense that we were talking about for so long. Kiev's backers won't provide military personnel, according to the Sunday Times. Despite previous pledges by the UK and France, no one wants to send their troops to die in Ukraine, a source has told the newspaper. If you have one of these anonymous sources familiar with the matter, saying that the whole concept of coalition of the willing forces in Ukraine is just talk, then you know it's true. You have to believe the anonymous sources familiar with the matter. In this instance, I believe them. I absolutely believe them. The UK, right? The UK is going to send troops into Ukraine. Not going to happen. Even if there were to be some sort of a deal, and even if Russia were to agree to it, which Russia is not going to agree to it, that's never going to happen either. Russia has said they will never allow any kind of NATO collective West forces in Ukraine, peacekeepers or otherwise. But let's just assume, let's go down this rabbit hole and assume that Russia agrees. Let's assume they get a ceasefire. Let's assume that Russia says, okay, Stammer and Macron can send troops into Ukraine to keep the peace. They're still going to say no. Stammer and Macron are still going to say, yeah, you know that coalition of the willing thing, Mr. Trump, that we were talking about? we were just playing around, man. Just playing around, Trump. You actually believed us? You believed us? Come on, Donald. Come on, man. This is Macron, man. You know, I'm a joker, man. I like to joke around. Anyway, let's do some more news. And I don't really have much of a clown world, to be quite honest. Trump said he's going to liberate D.C. in a Truth Social post. Washington, D.C. will be liberated today. Crime, savagery, filth, and scum will disappear. I will make our capital great again. The days of ruthlessly killing or hurting innocent people are over. I quickly fixed the border. 0 illegals in the last 3 months. DC is next. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I get a feeling, a sense that Trump likes the word liberated. He likes the word obliterated, and he likes the word liberated. Obliterated and liberated. 2 of Trump's favorite words. I like it. I don't like it, but I like it. I don't like it, but I like it. Oh, man. Azerbaijan is threatening Russia. Aliyev, man. Aliyev. Better be careful. Better be careful, Aliyev. You may have scored a couple of wins here and there, but don't get cocky. Aliyev. So he's saying that if Russia goes after Azerbaijan energy infrastructure in Ukraine or elsewhere, then Azerbaijan is going to lift the weapons embargo that they say they have placed on weapons going to Ukraine, which is nonsense. Turkey and Azerbaijan, they've been funneling weapons into Ukraine, whatever they could, from the beginning of the conflict, and everyone knows it. What embargo is Aliyev talking about? Russia's going to call Aliyev on this bluff, and this has to do with Russia hitting that gas compressor station close to the border of Romania in the Odessa region. I talked about this last week in a video update. This pissed off Aliyev, and now Aliyev is saying, don't you do this again. If you do this again, then we're going to lift the imaginary embargo that we have on weapons going to Ukraine. Go ahead, lift that imaginary embargo, Aliyev. That's what I would say if I was Russia. What else? The president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, Claudia, she was speaking to the media, and one of the reporters asked her a question about the $50 million bounty on Maduro placed by the Department of Justice and Pam Bondi. And Sheinbaum said, show us the evidence. She said, right now, we don't see any evidence that Maduro is part of a drug cartel. 0 evidence of that. Because it's all about the oil, and we know that. Everyone knows it's all about the oil. Number one, it's about the oil above everything else. Trump has something with Venezuela from his first term. He had his whole Juan Guaido thing that he put together, which was a complete joke, a complete disaster. But that was under Trump's first term, so he has that going on. So he has a bone to pick with Maduro and with Venezuela. That's still on his mind, the whole fiasco that was Juan Guaido. So that's lingering. So you have the oil, you have Trump's first term with Juan Guaido. You also have the fact that Rubio is the Secretary of State, and he's a Venezuela hawk. So that also gets factored into the equation. But above everything else, above it all, the most important factor in this next round of regime change Venezuela, this next part two of regime changing Maduro is getting at the oil. The U.S. wants the oil in Venezuela. So anyway, the president of Mexico said 0 evidence of Maduro being in a cartel. Actually, the bounty, the 50 million bounty, I talked about this a couple of days ago, that I was going to call in and claim the $50 million because I knew where Maduro was. Caracas, Venezuela. I told you guys that in my video update. Well, here's what happened. I finished that video. I called up Pam Bondi and I told her, I know where Maduro is. She said, really? She says, do tell. And I said, he's in Caracas, Venezuela. And she said, you know what? Someone else called us 5 minutes earlier and told us the same information. And if it's true and Maduro is in Caracas, Venezuela, I'm going to have to give the reward to the person that called before you. And I said, come on, Pam, come on. She said, it's the only fair thing to do. Someone beat you to it. And so I asked her. I said, who was it? Can you tell me? Can you just tell me who it was? She said, okay, I'll tell you who it was. She said it was some guy named Podoliak. Podoli something, Podolyak, some guy from, I think she said from Ukraine, named Podolyak or something. I called in and told her about Caracas, Venezuela, before I could, and it looks like this Podolyak guy is going to be getting the 50 million, man. So close. Podolyak! Newman! Podolyak! Anyway, I don't really have a clown world for today. There's a New York Times article with the title, Trump and Putin may get a cold reception from some Alaskans. You see what they're doing there? Because Alaska's cold, and, cold Alaska, cold reception from Alaskans. New York Times, everybody. The New York Times. A whole lot of people on X are posting pro-Ukraine, the people that want to keep the conflict going and that want to sabotage the talks between Trump and Putin. They're posting a Daily Mirror, newspaper cover with the title, Chamberlain flying to see the mustache man today. Let's try to find a peaceful solution, in quotes. I see what they're doing there. Very clever. This has never been done before. It's never been done before, right? Appeasement and Chamberlain and equating it to Trump and Putin and Trump appeasing Putin. That would make them like Chamberlain. I see what they're doing. Very, very clever. I wonder who thought that one up. That's never, ever been done. I've never thought about that. No one's ever brought up any kind of World War II reference when it comes to this conflict and Putin and Russia and negotiations with Russia. Brilliant commentary on X. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. theduran.locals.com. We are on X. We are on Telegram. We're on Rumble. And go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch, like the baseball cap I am wearing in this video. I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.